Many people think that setting boundaries means like you're being difficult, like you're the person at the restaurant who sends the food back 3 times and everyone at the table is pretending like they don't know you. Many people genuinely think that having standards and non-negotiable in their relationship means they're high maintenance, and they carry that belief for years. And you know where that gets you? Exhausted, resentful, saying yes to everything while your soul is screaming no. You're walking around with a smile on your face and a war on your chest because you're so terrified of losing people that you forgot that you're losing yourself. And the people that you bent over backwards to keep, well, most of them didn't even notice that you were struggling. And not because they're bad people, but because you never gave them the chance to respect a line that you refuse to draw. So today, we're going to talk about how to set boundaries without losing the people that you love. And I'm going to tell you right now, some of them might leave anyway, but the ones who stay, those are the ones who are actually worth keeping. Now, most of us were taught that good partners, they don't complain, right? That good friends don't make things awkward. And so you learned that very early, that the way to keep people around was to make yourself easy, agreeable, low maintenance, never too much, never too loud, never too honest about what you actually need. And that works for a while, right? And it works until you wake up one day and realize that every single relationship in your life is built on a version of you that doesn't actually exist. Now, I need you to understand that a boundary is not a wall. A boundary, is a door with a lock that you control. It doesn't keep people out. It just lets the right people in on the right terms. In the moment that you understand that, everything in your relationship will change. So, how do you actually do it? How do you tell someone that you love that something needs to change without it turning into, World War III in your living room? Step 1, you have to get clear with yourself before you get clear with them. See, most people, they try to set a boundary in the middle of an argument when their emotions are at a 10 and their clarity is at a 2. So before you say a single word to anyone, you need to sit down and ask yourself, what specifically is bothering you and what are you willing to do if nothing changes? Because people see a boundary without consequences like it's, just a suggestion. And people, they don't respect suggestions. They respect lines that actually mean something. So you don't have to be traumatic about it. You don't have to threaten anyone, but you do have to know in your heart what you're willing to walk away from. Now, before I get into step 2, if you're getting any value out of this video, then go follow me on Instagram. We just reached 2,000 followers, and maybe that's not much to many people out there, but to me, that's a lot. And I'm very grateful for every single follower. I'll leave a link to my Instagram down in the description below and on the pinned comment as well. But all right, let's keep going to step 2, because step 2 is the one that separates the people who talk about boundaries from the people who actually have them. Step 2, use your mouth, not your mood. So many of us try to set boundaries passively, right? We get quiet, we get distant, we start giving one-word answers, hoping that the other person will, magically figure out that something is wrong. And then when they don't figure it out, well, we get even more upset because how can they not see it, right? But bro, they're not a psychic. They didn't take a course in reading your energy field. They're just a person who loves you and has no idea what's happening because you communicated your boundaries through vibes instead of words. You're out here expecting them to decode your silence. Here's what actually works though. You say it out loud, calmly, clearly, with an attitude. Something like, hey, I love you. I need to tell you something that's been on my mind because if I don't say it now, it's going to turn into resentment and I don't want that for us. That's it. That opening alone, it disarms 90% of defensiveness because you're leading in with love instead of accusations. You're not attacking them. You're inviting them into a conversation that protects the relationship. Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The way you deliver the boundary, it matters just as much as the boundary itself. You can say the right thing in the wrong tone and lose everything. Step 3, let them be upset. Now, this is the part where most people crumble and take the boundary back. You finally say what you need to say. You do it calmly. You do it with love. And the other person gets upset. Maybe they cry. Maybe they get defensive. Maybe they hit you with the classic, "So you're saying I'm a bad person?" And your instinct, especially if you're a people pleaser, is to immediately backtrack.
No. I didn't mean it like that. Forget I said anything. It's fine. Everything is fine.
And just like that, the boundary is gone, dissolved in seconds because their discomfort was louder than your need. Now, listen to me carefully. Someone being upset about your boundary, it does not mean your boundary was wrong. It means that they were comfortable with the old arrangement where you had no limits and they had no accountability. So, of course, that's more comfortable for them, but comfort built on your silence, it's not peace. It's a performance, and you're tired of performing. Let them feel what they feel. You're not responsible for managing someone else's reaction to you taking care of yourself. And step 4, just watch what happens next. See, after you set the boundary, people will show you exactly who they are. Some people will respect it and they'll adjust. They might not love it at first, but they'll say, "Okay, I hear you. I'll work on that." Those people love you for real. So hold on to them tightly because that kind of maturity is rare and it's beautiful. But some people won't respect it. They'll guilt trip you. They'll call you selfish. They'll punish you with silence or distance or passive aggression until you give in. And I need you to hear this, even though it hurts. A person who only loves you when you have no boundaries does not love you. They love access, they love convenience. They love the version of you that never says no. And that's not a relationship if you ask me. That's more like a subscription to your energy, and you've been giving out free trials for way too long. But you know what? The trial's over. From now on, it's full price or nothing. Understand that losing someone because you set a boundary is not a loss. It's a filter that just filtered out someone who was never going to love you, the real you anyway. Now, if this video made you think of a conversation that you've been avoiding, take that as your sign. And if it made you think of someone else who needs to hear it, well, then send them this video today, tonight. Sometimes the thing that we need the most is the thing that we're the most afraid to say. And as always, don't forget to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss, any future videos. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.